Welcome back to Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV, and the question we've been discussing all morning has been whether Parliament has failed to check corruption in Kenya. Our guest is Senator Bilo Kero, Mandera County Senator, but also the chairman of the Finance Committee. He's a former chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. He's an accountant and an auditor, and so we've been, learning from his expertise. And Senator, the consensus from our viewers, it seems, is that Parliament has failed to check corruption. The question then becomes, if it's failed, does that mean that it's actively aiding and abetting corruption in the country?
No, I think that would be taking it too far. I think if it's failed, it's the incidents of corruption that we have seen in public service. The reports by the Auditor General is an indicator of the level of corruption in the country. He has, in the last few years, really highlighted what's happening in many ministries and institutions.
And the county governments.
And of course the county governments. And it's clear that the incidents, those incidents reflect that it's on the increase. So to the extent that Parliament is responsible for oversight, the very high prevalence of corruption in the country would be a clear indication that we are not succeeding. Failed. I personally would think yes.
But the question was actively aiding and abetting.
But I wouldn't say that's what I'm coming to. I don't.
Rent seeking, cash for questions. Apparently, the going rate for inserting or deleting wording from legislation is between 8 million and 20 million shillings.
I don't think I would say I would use the word aid, because aid would mean they would be actually taking part in the or encouraging people to.
But they're facilitating.
But I think they are failing. It would be amount to failing if they have not taken action, or if they have watered down the reports, or they are not adopting the reports, or they are not recommending.
But isn't that happening?
I think that is happening. That is why I'm saying they are failing in that context. And I think they would be seen, the perception clearly, I agree with the perception. The perception would be that we're aiding. Because we are letting people off the hook. I agree, by the way, there are instances where members of Parliament have come before a committee and tried to support or take sides really with someone who has been inside the committee room, so we've seen it. I think to that extent, yes, but I don't think it's for me, the key issue is that we have really failed as one of the institutions, and there are many institutions, but I think as one of the institutions we have significantly failed to impact ourselves.
I agree with the viewer that not only the benefit from the corruption. When the bigger the amount of money that is mentioned, the more committees want to investigate. Say for instance, Standard Gauge Railway.
No, it's true.
There were two committees of the same Parliament doing the same. You look at, you remember what happened at Westgate. Some committee went there. They were taken to amend quarters. Whatever happened, we don't know. When they went back to Parliament, Parliament trashed the recommendations. So they not only abet, they benefit. And they ran to do it not because they want public interest. It's because they want to benefit from the billions.
Unfortunately, that perception is now clear in the minds of many Kenyans, that members of Parliament are influenced to some extent by the opportunities that come with those investigations. I think that unfortunately, that's why I'm saying that unless the speakers need to really do something about the perception and the image of this House.
I'll ask you a question about your own situation, because we know that you're not contesting in the general election next year, but you've been in Parliament, you've been a legislator for over 15 years at least, I think.
No.
2003?
I came in 2003.
2003, 2016. Okay, about just under 15. Are you able to speak this freely with us because you're not going back to Parliament?
Not really. I've always spoken freely on this issue.
No, you've always been fairly outspoken. But the question being that a lot of the people who come here, you've been talking about party leanings and political loyalties, are influenced and choose their words carefully as a result of that. You haven't quite done that. I
think for my party position, I've said even on this station before that first I represent the people of Mandera. I think that is the primary thing. Number two, I am a legislator, so I have a responsibility for oversight and so forth in the House. And I think the party aspect should come third. It should not be on the front. It should not be the first item that I should be looking at. Is it a property or not? I think that is where our members of parliament have dropped the ball. I think we ought not to think in that, because if you do that, then you will lose your responsibility as a member of parliament whose primary function is really that oversight and that legislative. I think that is where we have lost.
What about tribalism? Well, I think it plays much bigger role than political party.
Yeah, but tribalism is part of the political party, because political parties are based on
ethnic alignment. Our viewers agree with you. Cheche, this is Nelly. Corruption will not be fought by politicians. Most of them got their wealth through it. They're there to protect their ill-gotten wealth. Fighting corruption will remain musical chairs until the Monarchy decide that anyone suspected of it shall never be elected to any leadership position. Not all stolen public money is recovered, and the guilty ones jailed for at least 20 years. The government, through parliamentary confusion, is injecting apathy in Kenyan minds. It's turned the words of war against corruption around to make Kenyans believe that the opposition is equally corrupt. Victor, they should change the laws, no bail, confiscation of property, Tony in Kitale, and then Cheche, let Kenyans say with one voice, bye-bye to corruption. It's a shame that it's in every corner of our country. Our children have adopted it by applying for help loans, while their parents pay fees every semester only to learn later that they're under help. And that's Robert in Kisii. And so coming back to where you were talking about the public, which is where Nelly says, the sort of people we elect, okay, flouting ill-gotten wealth, and they come in time and time again. Okay, you as politicians know that if you don't have a minimum, number of millions, you're not getting elected. Mutegi has shared with us, I think, that in years gone by, that people helped people get elected. Now the onus is on the candidate to find money, however, to get elected. Yes.
You see, in 2003, when we were doing in Bomas doing the constitution, I remember some of us suggested that we make some provision in the constitution to bar those who may be implicated in corruption. It's not easy to get a conviction in this country, but those who have been implicated through the constitution, but we were told that is not possible. All over the world, the public themselves, in an election process, acts as an institution of accountability to screen those who have been, implicated and those who have not been implicated. It's up to the public, really. But so, however, the reality is that we tend to always balance that with the need for the rule of law. The rule of law is that unless you have been really found guilty, you remain innocent. So, and because of the culture of mudslinging and the way we do things, then people would not want to really. So we said, no, let us not put it in. So what we have now is a very elaborate Chapter 6, which clearly says that for you to hold a public office, you must not put it into disrepute and the kind of things you had last night. If you go by Chapter 6, those gentlemen would have questions to answer, because you are putting those offices, but that is an office you are holding, into disrepute, trying to. But the reality is that the members of the public are doing their bit. What they are doing, Kenyans, in order to address that issue, is to increase the level of turnover of members of parliament. Every election, they throw out about 70% of them out and get new lot, hopefully thinking that the new guys will be better. But let me tell you, if you have lived as long as I am in this thing for the last 15 years, nothing has changed. It's getting worse. You would say those other guys were better than the current one.
So changing legislators doesn't really help that
changing
much.
Has not significantly helped.
If Martin Joseph Shikuku, if he was in Butere today, he would not be elected. But he was elected from 63. He was a member for Butere, and putting part of his money to the constituency. But today, since he didn't have any money, he didn't pay anything. In fact, people helped.
Yeah,
but if he ran today, he will not get elected.
There's a sense that the public tend to place some virtue on those who have and who can take or grab. That's what you've said.
That was not the case before.
So that if you are a pauper, if you are you are not deemed to be intelligent, you are not. So that I think is what is driving members, our politics.
We seem to have very good laws and even standing orders to support parliament. But how do we make them work, like Chapter 6 of the Constitution on integrity? How do we make these things work?
I mentioned earlier about the leadership of the House, the speakers and so forth. That's one of the ways I think that they need to really put their act together and rein in their members. The second is, I think, for the executive, because I believe Parliament helps the executive. It's not the other way around. I think executive should appreciate that Parliament, by putting, a lot of pressure on ministries and so forth, they're helping him. So the less pressure you put on Parliament, and to try to make them, look at things from their perspective only, the more you are really, lowering their order, impairing their independence. So I think the executive should also, the independent
to dictatorship.
Yeah, we should allow Parliament also to issue. That is critical for me. And three, the government, or those not only government, but I think our political leaders, particularly the political party leaders, should really allow their respective members to take their course. This issue of supporting is one of us, is what puts us into most of this. If you allowed individuals to really, go through due process, we would not be having all this chaos. But we don't want to wait for due process.
Vetting and nominations, the sort of people who come in.
Not only that, but even when you are mentioned, if you allow that person who is mentioned to go through due
carry that process alone.
Yeah, to allow due process to clear his name, it would be better than to immediately, get everyone to jump on one side to defend them.
What about values, as Maloa suggests, that we have a deficient value system in the country across the board, and this is what we're seeing, whether in public, generally, but also in public offices and institutions.
We try to address that in the Constitution. That's why in every chapter we talk of values, really, and we have a whole chapter that deals also on that. But there is need to probably take it further and start it from institutions, because what we have seen, I think research has shown that our young men, when they leave university, that tendency, that perception about making money and all that is the level of corruption is there. But I think what I've seen in some country, I went one time to the US, there's an institution that they call character counts. You are taught basic, characters virtuous characters or values in school. The whole institution, that's just focused. For example, when you crash into somebody in the corridor, that capacity for you to say, sorry, I'm sorry. And the way you speak, the way you receive, the way you're told this is not right, and this is, I think maybe we need to start that at school level. But let me tell you, even if we do that, frankly, in my own view, this thing is about the leadership. If the top is, like you said about the police, if you see the top is behaving that way, the ones at the bottom will continue thinking that is the way to go. Yeah. So I actually believe that it's we need to get that commitment to this thing from the top, full commitment, really, and that is where we need to.
Okay, so we're winding up now. We've had quite a frank conversation, panelists, with Senator Kero here. The overarching message being that our leadership has failed us, and if we can secure some kind of a commitment around corruption, that we might see some sort of change. Do you think that's likely?
Not with this government. Maybe another government. Because this government, they try to justify what is not justifiable. They try to explain what is not explainable. In leadership, look at Rwanda. Came from 1994, serious genocide, 800,000 people killed. Now it's a stable country, leading us and being a better country, being an example.
Jailing his own family members.
Yeah. Exactly. That's leadership. In some places, in some countries, you can't even spit on the roadside. You can't throw chewing gum on the street. In this country, it can happen, but somebody needs leadership. Many years ago, we didn't queue for buses. Today, everybody queues in the banks because of discipline. There was a Michuki here who helped us somehow. Unfortunately, he died. We need a Michuki in the presidency.
Benign dictator?
I want to tip the pyramid.
Dictator,
I want to tip the pyramid. He says it starts from the leadership. I say leaders don't fall from utopia. Leaders come from us. They are a reflection of us. I throw this back to you and me, the common mwananchi. We should decide what kind of leader do we need. Do we need Bill Okero, who is ready to say no to corruption? Or do we need Charles Odhiambo, who wants to make money so that he comes and buys us back? And we have that ability. We are a democracy. Go and vote for the kind of leader you want, not the kind of leader who gives you so much money, is from your tribe, or belongs to your political party.
So, Senator, your final thoughts as we close, but you issued a challenge. You talked about leadership. Now, what can you do in terms of bringing to heel, holding to account the leadership of both chambers of Parliament, but also the executive, given your seniority within the political system?
Well, I think we'll try. There is obviously there's a caucus in Parliament. There are people who think what is happening is not right. They feel a bit frustrated with what's going on, particularly at the executive level, but they also feel frustrated that Parliament itself is not really, things are not moving the way they ought to. We'll try and keep on probably engaging the leadership of the House in this regard, to try and see how we can get them to at least really put Parliament in its right place and avoid limits. It can be done, by the way. It is nothing that cannot be done if there is a commitment to it. It's something that can be done. So you're committing
to engaging the leadership of the House?
I think that's the only thing I can say at this time. But I want to also agree that it's at both levels, both at the public level and also at the leadership level. In the short term they can do. In the long term, of course, the public needs to change their perception on. But in the short term, I think there's need for the top also to try and act in a manner that can give confidence to everyone, and a manner that can create fear to those whom they work under them, that if you do this, it's not going to be entertained. I think that also needs to be happening immediately.
Okay, and there we'll have to end our conversation this morning. Our thanks to you, the Mandera County Senator and Chairperson of the Finance Committee in the Senate, Bilo Kero. Our thanks also to our panelists this morning, Mutegi Njau and Charles Odhiambo. My name is Uraka Mimo. Thank you for watching Cheche. We'll see you next week.